Ines. Yeah, so my name is Nadia. I work at SEEBURGER in the customer success management team, together with some major customers as engagement manager, and also support some pre-sales activities. And I'm responsible for the CMA application as a product owner. With that, yeah, warm welcome also from my side, and thanks for joining this webcast today. I want to give a brief walk through the agenda. First, I want to explain how the community management application fits into the BIS suite and how we use it for implementing automated onboarding and self-services. After that, I will give you a demo in our system so that you will see how you and your partners can both benefit from the CMA app by automating some repetitive manual steps in the portal. And then there's a little extra at the end where I'd like to give you an introduction to some new features that we have added in the last versions, and one that is still in development. Yeah, so I prepared some slides, some demo scenarios. Let's get started with the components of the BIS suite that we use for automated onboarding and self-services use cases. In the lower part of this graphic here, you can see the B2B gateway that many of you are probably using today already. So you have your EDI, your MFT, API processes configured here. We connect your internal systems, those of your trading partners for automated data exchange. Yeah, as part of the BIS platform, we also have the portal running with apps such as the message tracking. And like the CMA app, this application is aimed at business users who will only see a part of the complexity of the BIS server. So the community management app runs within the BIS portal, and with that creates visibility for your internal departments and also external trading partners. Yeah, the BIS platform is connected to the community management app via web services. So that means that you can also use the portal applications independently of the BIS system, for example, also as a service in the SEEBURGER cloud. So let's say the data from your suppliers will be collected during the onboarding. We want to use this data to configure the processes in the BIS system. So the partner will log on to the portal, selects whether they want to use EDI connection or rather work with a web EDI platform supplier portal. And then based on that selection and the master data that they're entering here in the portal, we configure your BIS. So yeah, that the data can be exchanged then at the end via EDI or web EDI layer. If the supplier is registered in the portal, then you can provide them with further self-services. For example, to work through future certificate changes, etc. So how does such a process work in a technical detail? It's important to know that the CMA portal is an application that allows you to make forms available to your external, to your internal users for the transmission or retrieval of certain data. But the processing of that data always takes place in the BIS platform. So in the case of an onboarding, it means that the suppliers will first receive an invitation email from the portal, and then they would enter their, for example, AS2 or OFTP communication data there. You can also exchange some test messages with them and check the data of inbound processes to see if these are valid, if this is valid data according to your company's guideline. So we send the uploaded EDI file to the BIS system to carry out the compliance check there. The data will be checked and the confirmation is then shown to the supplier in the CMA portal. If there is an error, the supplier can check the error message in the portal and then upload new test files until they basically corrected the mapping on their side. So there is no need to manually review the test data from your suppliers by you or your teams, and they will just work independently in the portal until all errors are eliminated, and yeah, then they can complete the onboarding. So throughout the entire process, you and your colleagues have the opportunity to monitor all the supplier activities in the portal, and that's one step that will also show during the demo. So after the partner has completed the onboarding, they should have an UMS account within the BIS system in which the CMA portal runs. So now you can assign further self-services in CMA to this registered business partner. They will be configured as new projects, and they will allow you to use the community of the connected partners for the future. And yeah, to carry out repetitive tasks in a transparent and hopefully largely automated way with advantages for both sides. So that could include, for example, an ongoing possibility for compliance check. You can use to distribute information about certificate changes, and throughout all these processes, you have full visibility of all activities and actions, feedback from the suppliers in the portal. So with that introduction, I want to start with the demos. I prepared 3 demo scenarios. But do we have any questions so far, Ines?
No, actually, we have no questions.
Okay. So first, I want to show you how we do an onboarding of, for example, AS2 or OFDP partner with a compliance check. So you can see here the community management application in the portal, and I select the onboarding project here, and I will show you the test mode, which basically shows the view that a supplier would take, or the participant in the survey would take, when they receive an email, they jump onto that link, and then get to the portal and will see these forms to complete their data. So when you are conducting an onboarding project, normally you would start with handing out some information to your partners. You might want to include some links. You might want to include some documents that you provide to them. So all the data that you want to hand over to your partners can be provided within the portal. You can use some pre-filled fields, provide them with some data, for example, to check the contact details that you have. You can also just show some data to them that cannot be modified, or ask data that you are still missing. So this is usually the first part of an onboarding, where we check some contact data, where we distribute some information about the process so that the person who sits in front of this and has a task to work on it is aware of the next steps. In this example, we give them the selection to select some message types. For example, here I take the dispatch advice and AS2 communication protocol. And with that, I will go to the next steps, selecting, going only for the steps relevant for my selection that I made here. So for the AS2 connection, I find some general details pointing to the data sheet that the partner has to configure in their system, and I'm asking for their details. So for example, the AS2 ID, the URL, and you can see all the fields here have an asterisk. So if I don't complete this information, I will not be able to go on to the next step. We're also giving some hints here. For example, you can see this little information bubble at the end, and it provides some hints for the person who should be providing that data there. What are the suggested encryption algorithms, for example? So I'm selecting the MDN mode from this selection that is given to me here. I have the possibility to upload a certificate from file system. This will also avoid any issues, and you can have all the data sent to the BIS system. The algorithm is a drop-down box where they can choose from. I also have here a little selection whether for encryption and signature I want to use the same certificate. If not, then I will get another field to upload the separate one. In this case, I will keep working with the same. I select the signature algorithm and then need to provide my selection whether I'm using TLS or no. In case of yes, I get an additional possibility to also upload the TLS certificate. And then here is the final evaluation based on the selection that I made above, that I'm working with a security profile, high security, because I'm using TLS and the recommended algorithms. So this is the setup of AS2 data in this example. And going to the next page, I have the possibility to carry out the compliance check. Here I'm also selecting some files from my local file system to check the compliance of the dispatch advice message. And what happens here is that we have this form in CMA, and the data that is now selected by the user is sent to the BIS system for carrying out the compliance check. So the first example here was a successful one. The protocol is not too exciting, showing it to you anyway. So it's has a header with some basic data about the message that I sent in, and the status that is compliant. You can also see that the user here must provide at least 2 messages so that they can go on to the next step. If I try to just finish the survey here, then there is no chance for me technically to go further unless I provided 2 successful messages. I also have a sample with some errors. And the protocol here, the compliance report is of course a bit more interesting. So you can see here that the status is not compliant. And yeah, for each and every field, you get the information, what needs to be changed in the message, what is the wrong value, at which position, which context, what is the path, and what must be changed in order for the message to be corrected. So you can see here the partners can work independently in the portal without the need to check and exchange test data manually. And that should be a relief for your team if you are still working through this process in a manual way today. Good. Yes, so after 2 successful messages, I can go to the next step, select the go live date. Also here in the selection for the date field, I made some restrictions. The date must be earliest next week and can be latest after 2 months from now on. So we can also define some conditions here for the partners to select a valid go live date. And then at the end of all the input, of all the data provided, they will get an overview on whatever selection they made, whatever test data or certificates that were uploaded. And after they have completed this step, their work in the portal is done. So this was the view of the partner. And now we're back in the administration view. And I also want to briefly show you how we do the configuration. So you can see we have one sheet here called onboarding, and then this sheet has multiple pages. I can also make some changes to it. So for example, here was the selection of the message types. And then let's say I want to add an additional message type for orders, for example. I can just simply go to the next step here and add another option. I can also drag and drop that maybe to the top. And then we have an additional message type, just like that. It's really configuration, it's clicking, it's no programming work, if you will, yeah? So the workflow in this tool, for example, here, you can see the selection for the communication method. You will, when you click on OFTP2, then you will get to the next page, OFTP2, and depending on the selection of your communication protocol, you will jump over some of those pages here. So before I selected AS2 and went straight to this page and skipped, of course, those 2 pages for SFTP and OFTP2. Yeah, so this is the configuration of the project in CMA. And with that, I think I've shown you an example how we do onboarding. The next use case that I wanted to show you was the information about the certificate change. We do have, yeah, for example, right now, some current activities for exchanging certificates for some of our cloud customers. So I choose the project here to fill with some data about the certificate information that is currently carried out. So you can see here in the designer view the information that will be shown to the partners once they click on the invitation link. So with that one here, I also want to show you how we work with the participant list. In that example, I could create one from scratch by just entering my email address, for example. And I can send the invitation email with that button here. I get the example based on the template that is set up within the campaign. It's an email that will ask me to follow this link in order to access the new certificates. And yeah, now I've sent out the email to my own user, but I guess in normal cases, when you want to distribute information to a lot of users, you don't want to add them here one by one. We can also work with a CSV file for uploading multiple participants. So there's always a template that is generated that you can download from here. In this case, I already prepared a list with 3 fake sample users that I can upload here. And just with that button, I created 3 new participants. Yeah, and I also wanted to show the configuration of the invitation email that I've sent out. That can be seen here in the email templates. So you can use a subject. You can always add some CC or BCC addresses, which can be very useful. And here in the email body that is sent to the partners, we can work with different variables. For example, also addressing them with their first names or surname. Important is that we do provide the task URL, and that would be the one that the partners need to click. So I don't give them all the information here with that initial email. Would also be possible to extend that a little bit, but for visibility of their activities, I want the partners to work in the portal, and so that I can see on the list of participants their status. So right now, let's see here, for example, for the user that I created for myself, there is an access URL. And I will take that to simulate working in the view of the participant on a separate window. So based on the information in the email, I open that link here. And now I can see all the information about that certificate change in question, exactly when it will be changed, which connection is affected, which serial number certificate is going to be replaced, where can I download the new certificate. So I can follow the link here to our MFT portal for downloading the certificate that will be replaced, or that will replace. Yeah, and here with the next button, I get to the second page of that project, and I can confirm that I will replace the certificate at the requested date and time, or that I'm using a trusted certificate authority anyway. So I confirm, and I don't add additional comments. I would have the possibility here, and then on the next button, I get my overview on all the details provided, and with finish, I can now close the window, which was the participant view. And you can see now here that, yeah, the status, the percentage has changed from 0 to 100 because I went through the entire campaign. And whenever a partner is invited and they're, for example, need to stop, or they close the window at some point in between, you will also see their status with a different percentage rate between 0 and 100. Great, so that was the monitoring of participants. And I also set up some export rules here in this project for sending out another confirmation email to the participants after they have completed the survey. You can see here, you could even add some conditions. So based on that, at the moment I only have one selection here in the project, but based on any data provided from within the project, you can create some conditions, select the type being email or HTTP export, and when you choose email, you get the complete dialog here for designing your email to yeah, confirm the participation of the project to the participant. So oh, by the way, I also received the email from our portal. I wanted to show you that. So this was the access link, and yeah, this is how it looks like. You have one central email address, exactly following the template from the configuration. So that was the second demo. And I want to jump to the third demo with one additional use case. It's maybe also a situation that many of you know when you are working in a project. A lot of people might ask you, hey, can you upload this test file to the system? I want to check if it works now with the backend system, with the mapping, etc. So within CMA, you could also use that to provide some self-services to your internal teams, and they can upload the test data from there to in CMA to send to the BIS system. So this would be set up here under self-services, and each user that is assigned has the access possibility once they have the rights to access this self-service. And for example, the project here that I want to show you is for an upload test file demo, and I can create for a new test file upload here a new instance of the self-service, select the EDI file that I want to upload. I can also choose the message format and provide some information about my test case, like the test case number or a description. I'm making up any number. And the information about my user is shown here. I cannot change this. And with that information, you can also identify the file later on in the BIS system. So when I click next and finish, this file will be sent to the BIS system for further processing. I can see here the web service being initialized, and after a moment, I can also monitor the data that is sent to the BIS system. So here I will see in the header section the information about my own user. That is always the case when I work in CMA because I have a fixed user, configured user in UMS. And specific to the execution of the self-service, I see the name of my test file. I see the content of the test file in a base64 encoded format. I can see the selection that I made regarding the data type, the test case number that I provided in my user. So this XML file is sent to the BIS system, and it's actually received here in our client 510. We can check the process monitor, and a minute ago I can see an execution of a process. It was received from the CMA external processing port. There is a MFT process with some steps. One is the content extractor to get the test file out of the XML file that is sent from CMA, create an attachment out of it, and then also get the formatted data from the base64 encoded file that we just saw in the XML. So here I will see the plain text file as it's then further processed by the BIS system. I'm forwarding this via FTP to another BIS system so that it can be processed there in the standard way from the B2B solution. So this is on client 500, and here in message tracking, I can select the data and the messages for the B2B solution, only looking at data from today. I will now see one additional test file with a timestamp and it being processed with the standard B2B solution as if it would come from the partner itself, for example. And with that, you can give your user the possibility for uploading test files in the BIS system, which can be quite handy during projects. Good. Yeah, so before I go on to the next section, maybe if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Nadia, at the moment we have no questions from our attendees.
Okay, all right. Thanks for checking. And I want to talk about some new features from our BIS releases 6.7, 154 to 157. These are already available, for example, in SEEBURGER Cloud. And at the end, as a last feature, I want to introduce one that is still in development. So first, the action button. With the action button, you can start a new activity in the BIS system. So you can add this action button to a form, and you can store an individual URL behind each action button. So the enter data of the form is then available to you in BIS, and you can also send back additional data to the CMA forms or to display in a pop-up window. So for example, here you can validate what the user entered. So we've always had a similar functionality like that with the next button to go to the next page. But the next button only allows you to use a fixed URL for the entire project, and the validation of the data must be successful before you can move on to the next step. So now with the new possibility using the action button, you have some additional flexibility. And yeah, also you can use the different URLs, don't have to stop working if the, for example, test doesn't work. but your users can go on to the next step. There is wide variety with this feature. And I will also refer to it at the end with the last feature. But now about another new feature which is available now is the dynamic combo box in combination with BIS map tables. So that will make it easier for you to access data out of the BIS system from CMA. You can see here you have the configuration to integrate map table providers into the CMA app. And then the content of a map table can be used to fill the drop-down fields within the CMA form, from which the user can then select a value. So that makes the content of the drop-down field dynamic. At the runtime, the data is pulled from the BIS system. So you can see on the right-hand side, for example, the map table. And these values are displayed in CMA for the user to select. There are also filter options to display only certain parts of the data, depending on some conditions. So I think you can make good use of this data, and it allows for an easier integration between BIS and CMA. And then this is another feature I would like to show you. This can be used when you have a lot of different self-services and want to provide them to your users. So it is possible to assign individual icons to a project in CMA. So that gives you a possibility to individualize these services for your users, and they will hopefully have some easier access. The screenshot on the right here I took from the SEEBURGER community forum. It's out of a post from Oliver Ruprecht from AMS Osram. And yeah, by the way, you can also read many more tips and tricks about CMA in this forum. Osram, our customer, they have a large number of self-services in use for several hundreds of their internal users. So Mr. Ruprecht automates his recurring BIS administration tasks, for example, assigning users to a message tracking group with the help of CMA. So I added the link here, and yeah, with the distribution of the slides, you can jump directly to this post if it's interesting for you. Good. Finally, I want to introduce the Open API integration. As a CMA admin today, you will create a form with all of the fields manually. So you will have to enter the name of each field, and if it's necessary, some other restrictions, such as the length, the data type, etc. And then when the data is exported to another system, such as the BIS server, an XML file is created from the form with all the data of the form. So let's say you want to create some AS2 master data record in BIS, you only need those technical fields for the AS2 communication. And with that, I'm going to the next slide, the future way of integration. We want to offer the CMA admin the possibility to create a form based on a REST API, and also to call the API directly with the data that the user entered in the CMA system. So the goal is to make all the objects for the integration of the data reusable on the BIS server. Yeah, this feature is currently in development, and we will make it available for customers to test early next year before the official release. So if you're interested in access to this special testing option, feel free to contact me and reach out to me directly. You will find my contact details then at the end of the presentation. So there are also some screenshots that I wanted to show you of the current state of development. It is possible to create this basic configuration of the API services. The definition can be pulled from the server when you enter the URL, username, and password, or upload it as a Swagger file. When you add a new API service page, you can choose from those options here to automatically create the fields according to the API definition. So you either create a completely empty page and add your API service fields one by one, or you add all of the fields automatically to the page, only the fields that are required by the Open API service definition, or you go through a selection here in the dialog and the advanced configuration and only select some fields that should be added to the page. So we tested this with some web services and made good use of those options here. We believe this is the best possibility, but if you have any feedback, it's always welcome. This is an example of the well-known pet store API. So all of the fields that you see here were created automatically from the Swagger with the defined names, with the field types, with the restrictions, the values for the drop-down. This one here can be multiple values for each entry, so it's automatically creating a table to upload multiple URLs here. All of this is pulled from the Open API definition and it's building you a form in CMA. So if you choose one of the options that didn't create all of the fields, you can still add them here from this dynamic dialog. So for each page, you have a new drop down here where you can select all the fields from the Open API definition to add to the page if necessary. Yeah, and then at the end of the page, we automatically add the post button to send the request if the HTTP method for that page is post, and all other methods like the put and get, delete and patch methods, they can all be called and executed with the action button. All right,